And here we are. Hi. I would like to very much share with you a little song here. I wrote this song a little while ago, and I'm attaching this to this post for my newspaper called An Exploration of All of Us. One moment.
You have spoken me far to the crown, and in the winter cold, I hear your voice.
Very good.
If it
We shall go on from here. All of us, a scientific exploration. The intricate works of the universe. Magnetic flux field wave variation drives the entire universe. The Great Divide, the cosmic connection to an enigmatic universe full of mystery and form, we consider this to be our home. It is home to many. The great quest is to have understanding of its works and how to capture, as it were, its mysteries. There is so much to explore. The latest theories that talk about entanglement comes the closest I have seen to the correct perception of the cosmic biological essence we call the universe. She responds as though it has a consciousness of its own. Small particles act the same as large galaxies. Quarks can interchange spatial frameworks from dimension to dimension, and scientists off the coast of Africa have sent particles 89 miles away to be received by another laboratory. See Brian Greene's The Cosmos. Although this is cutting edge quantum physics in motion, it is still missing the heart of matter. Which brings me to my point. The correct term is space-time matter, or time-space matter, as the case may be. I say this confidently, as I will explain to you the reason for my theory. When the Big Bang occurred, 14 million years ago, as it were, the explosion threw out a tremendous force. All the matter of the universe was bundled into one chunk. This chunk exploded for one reason or another. The force of that chunk and the impact that occurred with that explosion is still occurring. That force is still operating, continuing along as it goes. The space-time matter field then picks up charge as it interacts with other matter, thus sparking kinetic and electromagnetic charges which fuels its journey. It's a radiational force, but it is similar to the law of conservation. That's why it's picking up speed. Now, the charged matter is what I call activated matter. Charged matter, positive matter, as opposed to negative matter or inactivated matter. The inactivated matter exists as dark energy, a plasmatic space-time antimatter field which has a field but carries a double negative charge. So it seems to be inert. However, upon further examination, it makes sense that once the positive matter field interacts with exchanging magnetic field fluctuations, it will then also interact, which then becomes activated matter. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And it seems to me that quirks, quarks, and neutrinos that zip around the inner field of an atom but will stay stationary upon being examined makes a very curious observation. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, the universe is responding to the fact that we are inquiring, the fact that we want to know, and the universe responds, tells you something. What does it tell you? Again, the vehicle that drives the universe is electromagnetic in wave fields and powered by gamma ray and heliotropic radiational fields. However, as I alluded to earlier, it is my belief that it also has a consciousness of sorts, a super consciousness, which seems to have existed always. In spiritualism, a goddess-like awareness that has been the cause of many illuminations and many deaths. But here I refer to more in the way in which indigenous peoples such as the Mayas and the Incas could proliferate astounding predictions and almost to the day calendars accounting to the various dispositions of the stars in the cosmos, times of birth, place of birth, and indeed right to the accounting of what emotional forces may be present in each individual. Where did they get this? All indigenous peoples believe in some sort of divine force that guides them. And so it seems that there must be some reason for all this to exist. Biocosmology is the study of our innate biological connection to all things in this universe. I think this is what Einstein was talking about when he discovered spooky energy at a distance in quantum physics. Any particle that is entangled with another will be affected by the first and can exchange field variances. In other words, they affect one another. What makes them entangled? Magnetic interaction. Equational context. E to the third equals m to the third times the change in the m to the third over the square root of m to the third times the gravitational constant times the change in the universal constant or the biological constant, where m to the 3 is the mass of matter being transported, calculated on both sides, positive and negative terminals, coupled with the number of electrons in the moles, the atomic number, and the type of mass being transported. And e to the third is energy to the third power, or the full triplicity of the dynamic of time, space, matter. C equals the speed of light, or the universal constant, and G equals the gravity on Earth. Mass is inverted, where two dimensions meet or interact and implodes, thus creating a quantumized leap or jump function along a vector field. Particles move with the force of gravity quantumized by the mass to the third power. We calculate for the mass on both sides of the dimensional barrier by its inversion. Its square root times the change of the speed of light. Forces implode when opposing fields are presented in the same moment in the same field occupation. Geometric fractals of matter and energy expressed through vector lines of force according to the law of conservation in the positive terminal space, and through radiational force expression in the negative terminal space. Light speed moving through a non-entropy field that acts like a vacuum to literally suck up the matter field and the vector scalar field presents, amplified by the quantumized muon waves, muon matter waves. The grid complexes expresses as 100 light square years per unit. So for every 100 light squares, that's 1 unit in time, space, matter. So now we move into the concept of the wormhole. Fluid flow in a pipe through threshold of laminar to turbulent flow when a dimensionless parameter called the Reynolds number, and you can look this up, reaches about 2000. It is defined as RE equals PLV over N, where V is the velocity of the fluid and L is the characteristic length or the distance to travel of the pipe, its diameter. Or in the case of a wormhole, we have to recognize that it's not so much how far across it is, but how long it is. RE is essentially the ratio of the inertial forces tending to keep the fluid flowing to the viscous forces tending to slow the motion due to contact with adjacent layers experienced in a layer of fluid. So it moves forward, it feels a layer, it moves back. It moves forward, it moves back. It moves forward, it moves back. RE can also be expressed as the ratio of viscous diffusion time, the time required for effects to diffuse through the fluid layers, which is what I just said, to eddy advection time, the time required for the eddices and vortices to form. So we're talking about an elastic plasmatic field, which is really activated time-space matter. I use this equation to relate the experience of wormhole travel, which is most likely the only way for us to travel into galactic or interstellar space. The laws that govern time-space matter will quite likely be the same in most fields once the density of the environment is calculated. Now consider the actions of the muon waves jumping. It is understood through this action that particles that strike each other at 90-degree angles from the parent signal wave can jump to non-visible wavelength fields or dimensions. Neutrinos can do this, seem to disappear and then reappear. I'll explain this to you. The normal light wave moves along a wave field in a horizontal way. Now what happens is the muon waves hit the light wave at exactly the right angle, which is a 90-degree angle. What happens is it jumps to the next variance level. So for example, if you're looking at color wave fields, you have a red, then you have or an orange. You have an orange, and then a red orange, and then a red. These are wave variance fields. You can do the same with music or many other frequencies. However, what happens is once you reach the peak of orange, you are going to start moving into red. The muon waves assist this jump function, this variance raised frequency function. And as it were, with light waves, it actually makes neutrinos disappear into some non-visible field, which we could calculate as light on a clear light as opposed to visible light. Either way, it goes into a field that we can no longer perceive with our minds and our eyes. We have to then calculate the constancies, or where is it going? I speculate it is to repulsive implosion. Enthalpic peak of wave field shakes up the particles, separating its tiny components and bundling them very tightly into themselves, which then causes the implosion to occur. So it's moving so fast, suddenly it implodes and then explodes. It's exploding into our field and imploding into another field. Then a vacuum of sorts begins to develop as light energy moves to fill the space that was previously occupied by component particles. This is where and when the two fields spark each other by mutual attraction. The negative charged particles from the positive terminal space is repulsed by the negative terminal space antimatter field and creating the repulse action to move particles into both fields. During this type of reaction, gravity is no longer applicable, and matter shifts form until it is again repulsed back into the positive terminal space. So I would like next chapter is entanglement. Biocosmology is the science of the interconnectedness of all things, not just people, places, or things, but substances as well. We consider ourselves to be individual, and this is quite true in the classic sense. However, since space can bend, ripple, and twist, it shapes the cosmos.